Boxes to Builds, number 21. This is one we've not seen before in all the 20 other episodes. Let's get started. Welcome back to the McGolf Shop. Jim McCleary here, and this is the 21st Boxes to Builds, and we are going to grind a wedge. You wouldn't see the opening of it because all it had was this. So we're not going to, bore you with all that. So the letter that I got, which was this big, it says, would like some heel and trailing edge relief. I know it will remove the finish, and that is okay. All right, so why do we want this kind of stuff? Why do we remove metal? Why do we do these grinds? Okay, now in other builds we've talked about F grinds, G grinds, M grinds, C grinds, W grinds, and S grinds. Okay, they all have different purposes for different types of golfers. This is not about that. So depending on where you play, depending on how you play, would tell you what kind of grind you would want. Each manufacturer has a different letter for the type of player, so you'd have to look that one up. In this particular instance, we have a Vokey SM9. A Vokey SM9. You're not going to see it because it's all blacked out. All right, and it is a 14K. It's a 58 degree 14K. Now, what does 14K mean? It means that there's 14 degrees of bounce, and we're going to cover bounce. So bounce is the difference between the middle of this club head, the middle of the sole, and the trailing edge. So if you look at that, there is a gap, right? See this opening right here? That is the gap. And that gap, if you were to measure, should be 14 degrees. Now you can go here, that's not going to do any good, but it's 14 degrees. Now the other part of this is it is very wide. All right, it's very wide. And if you keep looking, so what he wants to do is remove some of this, and he wants to remove some of that. In the day, it was called a tour grind. All right, and a couple of trailers I was on, they just called it a tour grind. You wanted to remove a little bit of the trailing edge, and you removed a little bit of this. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a tour grind. So let's talk about doing the tour grind. All right, in order to do wedge grinding, you need a couple of things. Number one, you're going to want a Sharpie. You're going to want a Sharpie of a contrasting color, and we're going to go over that in a little bit. The other part is that you're going to need some people would do it on a grinding wheel, if that's what you got, with some different grit stones, right? Different grit stones. And you're going to want them to be a little wider. The typical one you get like at the Sears or the Home Depots, they're about 1 inch wide, and they will do an okay job. But again, a Burr King is the number one thing. That's what you see on the trailers. What I've got is a Jet, and it has a very, very similar attachment, and that's what we're going to talk about going into it. Now, grinding is not just grind and you're done. What we're doing is we're going to grind into a shape, and then we are going to grind into a finish. Sounds counterproductive. It is not. So what we're going to do is we start just like when people do woodworking. We're going to start with a lower number or a higher grit, and then we're going to work our way down into something smooth, and then we're going to polish it. Now, why is that? This is a black coated finished club. And when we take this off, it's going to remove this coating, and that's the dangers of doing wedge grinding, or the reason why you would do the wedge grinding. And it's going to remove that coating. When it removes the coating and you take it out to play and you get into fertilizer, you get into dew, like we're into that particular time of the year now, you get into the dew and you don't wipe this off, it's going to rust. So what we really want to do is we're going to get it into the shape, we're going to smooth it out, and then we're going to polish it to a high gloss, and that's going to hopefully put a protective wax coating on it initially, and then it'll be up to the golfer to maintain. So let's go back over to the bench, and we're going to talk about how we're going to remove this trailing edge. So he said he wanted the trailing edge, a little bit of the trailing edge removed. That is this area. And we're going to stay in the idea of the tour grind, right? So we're gonna run it about like that in this particular area. Now what we're going to do, we're not going to get it and just remove the whole thing. What we're doing is we're just removing enough so that the golfer can open the club a little bit, and I think that's what we're looking at. So we're going to go into this area here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to remove some of the trailing edge. Now we remove the trailing edge because this thing is so wide. Normally I'd only take a little bit, but since this thing is so wide, we're going to take a little bit more. Okay, and then we're going to do like this. Now in a lot of cases what we would do is finish it going off the other way, and we're going to try and not get so intrusive because it is a black, and we're going to go with something along this lines here. Now what did I do this for? This is the guide for which we go to do the grind. So when we go to take the sanding and we go to grind it, this is what we're going to use to take off. And we got to be able to see it while we're moving fairly quick, and so that's the reason why it's a contrast. So let's go over to the grinder. All right, here we are at my jet grinder, and the reason why I like this one is because of this, what I call the tractor wheel. And this is what I lean into in order to do grinding of just about every shape and size. Now, we're going to talk about what we use. They're just like in sanding of wood, there are different grits. This one happens to be 80, and yes, it's going to remove a lot of metal, so we're not going to lean into it really, really hard. I have some hundreds that I've used up, and we're going to use that. I also have what's called a Trizac belt, and Trizacs are very, very fine belts, and this one is a 220 belt. All right, and they come in multiple different grits. And there's one that's a 440, and that would be this one. This is a 440, and this is a 1200. Very, 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 very smooth. So we're going to go to those. We also have some nylon belts, and the blue is the one that is the lower grit, and this one is the one that really, really can eat up some metal. This one we'll probably end up going to after this one in order to smooth some stuff out, and we're going to just basically take our time and get down to where it's the shape that we want and the look that we want before we go and polish. All right, so it's going to get noisy, so we'll probably put some music in the background. So put on our fan, and we're going to get started. Alright, so you see that there's a lot of grain here, right? And it can look pretty cool, but we've almost got to where we want to go. I don't want to get too far into it because then we remove too much metal. So this is a good starting point. You can see I still got a little bit of my Sharpie sitting here and a little bit sitting there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to change a belt. The red one's still going to eat metal, but it's going to also give us a slightly smoother look. I'll show you here in a second. All right, as you can see there, see how the grain is, it's been removed quite a bit. There's still some in here, and we're still not done with that part of it yet. And if you look, all we've done is we've truly taken that trailing edge off. And now what we got is just a little bit of a ledge. And we've basically done, we're going to go out here maybe just a little wider to kind of give this a little bit more smooth transition as opposed to just in a shelf. And so we're going to use that when we go down to the next two. We're going to try and smooth this part out. So let's change out another belt. Okay, we're going to jump right to the 440 because we've got our area taken care of, and we really want to smooth it out now. Okay, you may not be able to see it, but it really smoothed it out. And I've got the trailing edge and the heel taken care of, and the shelf has been removed. All right, and we've got a little bit out in this area. We've gone, you know, into the area where we were grinding it out, so he'll have a little bit of toe removal as well. So now the last bit we really want to do here is we want to take this and turn it into something that looks like it was part of it when it started. So we're going to go over to a sisal wheel, and we're going to use some black rouge, and we'll show you how that works. So what you see here is what we call a sisal wheel, and it's basically stitched hay into a form of a wheel. There's 2 or 3 of these because they come about this thick, and so I've got 2, maybe 3 on this guy. And then what I use is black rouge, and black rouge is basically a wax or a polishing compound that you put on here in order to help polish. There's whites and reds and blacks and various other colors. You've watched me use Glanz wax over on the other wheel, which is even finer still. So this is what we got here. We're going to use that and try and get rid of all those grain in that and see what happens. Okay, so you see where it's become shiny, and we've taken a lot of the grain out, and you're starting to see a high polish. That's about as far as I want to go with it. Now I'm going to take it over the Glanz wax wheel just to smooth it out just a tiny bit, and then we'll come back and talk about this. So what we're looking at here is, did we get what was requested? We wanted the trailing edge, a little bit of the trailing edge, not a lot, a little bit of the trailing edge, and some of the heel removed. And I think we got that, right? We've got, we got a lot of into the heel, And then we've got a generous, although a not, I would say generous removal, but there's still, if you really wanted to remove more, you could. But I think this is, the roundedness is what's really going to help the golfer, because it really went out, and that's what we were trying to get rid of. Because what can happen in it, particularly if you're a picker and you have a wide sole, that what'll happen is you're coming to pick and it will kick that forward. So now as this comes through the turf, it's going to roll and it's going to do all right with that. Then he's also going to be able to open the blade just ever so slightly. Not like a flop shot, but he'll be able to open it up. Now, to recap, in order to get the particular grind that you want, you really have to research what bounce, how much heel and toe, the width of the sole. There's a whole lot that goes into the selection. We shortcut a lot of this because this was the head we had to work with, and we already had the directions that we needed. You can do a lot of that. Now, you know, Jim, how did you learn how to do this? I literally bought a ginormous bag of raw, totally raw, without being looked at, heads, and I polished every single one of them in a different fashion in order to know what in order to figure out the feel and the results that you would get from sanding, or the sandpaper, the wavy nylons, the regular nylon belts, the Trizacs, the whole 9 yards, and I did a lot of them. Now, does that make me as good as some of those pros out there? Not even close. Not even close. Because I don't get a lot of call to do this, so this is a recallable skill. All right, so we gave him we took it down little bit by little bit by little bit, and then we polished it up using the sisal wheel and the Glanzwatch. So now it has a coating on it, so it just won't rust even in transport, right? And we gave them what they were looking for. So we still maintain our bounce angle, but still giving the grind that they want in order to get through. So if you like to talk about more of this thing, or like to learn about more of these things, I do a live stream on Mondays called What's in My Drawers Golf Talk. Starts at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, or 17:30 for you guys in across the pond, or military for that matter. Also, like and subscribe, hit that bell down below, and that way you get more of these videos when they drop. It also helps promote the channel, and we get to, you know, give this knowledge to more people like you. And as always, hopefully you enjoyed grinding the wedge, and let's see your scores go low.